Today, we're talking about dome ships on AniLysis. That lovely, fun series, AniLysis. And I've gathered my various dome ship things here. A couple of commissioned art pieces, the Animorphs journal, which has a dome ship on the front, and this little toy dome ship here. So we're going to talk about the dome ships. I've done a fair bit of research. I think I've got the main points. There may be a couple of bits hidden around in the books here or there that I've missed, but I think I've got you a lovely little overview of the dome ships. Let's firstly go over the descriptions, shall we? The dome of a dome ship is a circular area about 1 kilometre across. It is filled with grass, trees, rushes and flowers. There is a lake in the middle and a stream that runs around the circumference. It's as much like home as it can be. You'd almost think you were running across any well-kept area on the homeworld, but when you look up, you see that you are in space, protected only by a clear plastic bubble, a dome. A dome ship is built with the dome at one end, and then, far away, far back, there are 3 huge engines, zero-space engines. Connecting the dome to the engines is a long shaft. Inside this shaft is a place where everyone has their quarters, their private areas. For Arith, the quarters are tiny. If you want to turn round, you have to back out into the corridor. We don't spend too much time aboard the ships. Most notably, we spend time on it in the Andalite Chronicles, and then we have a prologue in Book 8, The Alien, and then we briefly spend time in the dome of a dome ship, underwater in Book 4, The Message. Speaking of the dome of a dome ship, it does seem to be one of the more important parts of a dome ship, hence the name dome ship. So the dome ship looks like this as described in the books. It's a shaft with engines at the back and a bulbous bit at the top. Rather phallic in design, as you'll probably agree. But let's talk more about the dome at the top. This thing can be separated, as the book tells us a couple of times. Inside the dome is an area that sort of resembles the Andalite homeworld. It's the place where they go to run around, get out of a claustrophobic environment, especially their small private quarters, which for a claustrophobic species, if they can't even turn in it, then that's probably bad design, and then they're just given this dome part of the ship to run around in as a compromise. But it's filled with all sorts of things, as the books describe. There was grass, more blue than green, but it still looked like grass. There were trees like huge stems of broccoli, and other trees like orange and blue asparagus spears. At the centre was a small lake, crystal clear blue water. From the water grew fantastic, transparent green crystals in shapes like eccentric snowflakes. Our trees are almost always green, and the grass is all green too. More green than this, not so much blue, and no red. We have 17 species of grass in 30 different flavours. The Andalites will spend their free time roaming this wonderful land with asparagus trees and broccoli everywhere. It's a vegan's fucking wet dream, innit? They'd love it. And you've got lakes and streams where they eat with their hooves, don't they? So it's sort of a buffet. They just step on everything and everything's nice and tasty. And then you imagine, from what's described, the rest of the ship, there's no grass, no anything, small quarters, very, very claustrophobic. It comes across as almost like a submarine sort of thing. So this long shaft here, even on this book, it looks even thinner. You see how thin that is compared to the ship. And that bit there, the dome, is apparently about 1 kilometre across, according to the book. So that's pretty much 1 kilometre long. What happened there? No, that was falling over. That better not fall over, because that's glass. You stay. Stay, right? So that's about 1 kilometre long, that's where all the quarters are, and that's also where the bridge is. What's the bridge like on these things? The room was circular, with bright monitors glowing and computer screens reeling off data. Holographic monitors created images in mid-air, and there were sound, speech, info tags and thought speech computer warnings. Warriors working on the battle bridge often used hand signals between themselves so that the thought speak noise wouldn't become a jumble. Very much a military vessel, and the books will describe the dome ships as the main ships of the Andalite fleet. You've got cruisers, you've got assault ships, but the dome ship is the head honcho of the ships, the mother ships. How many do we come across in the series? As far as I could see in my research, we come across 4 ships, and they are the Star Sword, which was Elfangor's first ship, captained by Captain Phaeon. You have Tailstrike, which is the ship that we saw briefly come to the Star Sword's rescue at the end of the battle with the Yeerks, when Elfangor comes back into the Andalite fleet. So that was only there briefly. We have Galaxy Tree, which is the one that Axe and Elfangor were on together, and it was the one whose dome separated, crashed into the Earth ocean, and where we rescued Axe from. And then lastly we have Elfangor, the dome ship Elfangor, which is seen in the last book, The Beginning, which is where Prince, or Commander Prince Asculan came from. So those are your 4 ships. I just want to add to that as well, the Galaxy Tree was captained by War Prince Nerefer. Just so that we know. We don't know who captained Tailstrike, but we know who captained the other 3. Just want to make sure that's clear. How mighty were these dome ships? If they are the mother ships, then surely they must have some firepower. Our mighty dome ships, each more than a match for anything the Yeerks had, were spread too thin. A dome ship's shredders can blow chunks off a planet. The beams of green light looked as thick as tree trunks as they blasted through space and hit one of the asteroids with enough power to punch a hole through a moon. So those are really the only 3 lines that show how powerful these things are. There is a bit in the Andalite Chronicles where it's firing off so many shredders that the space is lighting up around them. So apart from that though, how mighty were they really? Let's talk about the Galaxy Tree's final voyage, where it's hovering above Earth and then the blade ship comes into view. What happens? The dome is separated, because that is a thing that can happen. The top part, this dome, comes off. And according to, I believe, Axe, that is to increase the mobility of the ship. However, it still had the turning circle of an American motor car, and so was blasted straight out of space by the blade ship regardless. So it still had absolutely no mobility, which makes you think, really these ships aren't the best designed. Look at them. It looks like a really weird walking stick. You don't know where I think I can see the shredders there. So if I bring this up to you here, there's not much light on this thing. Maybe if I put it this way, there you go, it might be a bit better. You can't see me very well, but you can see this a bit better. Just there, like these little bits sticking out at the side, that's probably where the shredders come from. And I just want to put say something here as well. The gravity shifts as you get into the dome at the top. So just to quote here, we were moving from the central shaft out onto the dome floor. There's a 90-degree gravity change at that point. I mean, down in the main shaft is a different direction from down on the dome floor. To me, it just seems like a really inefficient design. And so it proved when it decided it's going to waste time separating the dome from the ship and then still barely turn in time for the blade ship to blast out of the sky. A blade ship that is considerably smaller was able to kill it with essentially one hit, a one-hit KO. So the Andalites bigged this thing up, oh these are the great ships, when actually it performs like a complete pussy in the battlefield. Sorry Andalites, but your arrogance and naivete has come into full force yet again. We can all rest assured though, that when these ships come under peril from the slightest of forces, it can self-destruct. To all fighters, this is the captain. We are beginning self-destruct sequence. Clear the area. If anyone is still alive out there, get clear of the Star Sword. We will implode the engines and blow a hole in space. Yes, so not only can it explode, but it will create a black hole in the process. Sounds normal. Pebbles got a hand up.
I have a question.
You have a question?
Why would they name it Star Sword? Andalites don't use swords, nor would they ever create one.
That is a fair point. Why name it Star Sword when they use tail blades? That is a good question. What else have they got? They've got Got the Elfanga, of course, Galaxy Tree, Tail Strike. That's more along the right lines. Yeah, it tends.
What I mean, though, it's weird.
Yeah, I do. They tend to have a. Well, you can see the theme that the names are. Apart from Elfangor, they just thought, nah, sod it. We'll sod the usual naming standards for our ships. We'll call one Elfangor. Okay. When the dome is separated from the rest of the ship, so that the rest of the ship with all the fighters and bridge on it can be sacrificed, the dome does have its own thrusters, thankfully, but it's not powerful enough to slow the ship. Emergency engines kicked in with a loud whoosh, but they could only slow the descent, not stop it. So overall, these things seem pretty useless, really, from a battle point of view. What about security? What about security? Surely you must need passcodes to get into the dome. Okay? Well, no, funnily enough. When the Galaxy Tree's dome is found underwater in Book 4, The Message, how did the Animorphs enter? That red panel, that's got to be the doorknob, Jake said. He pressed his beak against the panel. Instantly, the outer door opened. So as much as we rail on the Pemalites for having single-digit passcodes in Book 27 to get into their ship, at least they have a frickin' passcode, Andalites. It's the naivety, the arrogance of the Andalites. We don't need passcodes. Nobody's going to stumble across this ship without our permission. Well, it turns out they did. And if that was the Yerks coming to find Axe, then he would have been royally screwed. So that is essentially the dome ship. So I've got this little glass thing here. This is a bit of glass work that I got. Kind of funky, I think. I think the perspective makes it look really stumpy. And then I've got this bit of woodwork up here, which I'm not going to take off the wall. But if you can see that, yeah, that's a dome ship as well. So I've got a few dome ship little bits. But they're an interesting ship. We don't see much of them, and they're purported to be these mega things that can, withstand anything. But what do they do throughout the series? Blow up, get shot and blown up again, get attacked by living asteroids, and then mysteriously vanish as part 3 of the Andalite Chronicles comes along. And apart from that, their quarters are too small, despite the fact that the ship looks like it's about 1 kilometre in size. It's slow as molasses, and I think they could do with better battleships, to be honest. It does have docking stations though, so it sends out all these little fighters from presumably somewhere around the middle, or around near the dome at the top. Yeah, it's basically a hive. So anyway, that's the dome ships. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any suggestions for what you want to learn about next in the AniLysis series, please do get a hold of me. Leave a comment down there. Vote in the next poll, because I'm going to put a new one up soon. I don't know what I'm going to make the choices yet, but there you go. Thank you very much for watching, and I shall see you next time. Ta-ra!